Am I recording? Hello, it's me, Chaz, back again with another video. This one's a little bit of a series I want to do. I'll be discussing each nation that is part of FIFA. There's currently 211 members of FIFA. Each video, I'll be discussing one nation, a little bit about their history with FIFA, but my main focus will be how they competed at every World Cup that they qualified for. The first 7 videos I'll be making will be on the founding members of FIFA. All have qualified for a World Cup, and some of them have also hosted a World Cup, in some cases more than once. I'm going to start this series off with France. When it comes to the World Cup, France are the most successful out of the 7 founding members, winning 2 World Cups, first in 1998 and again in 2018. They also hosted the World Cup twice. The very first World Cup they hosted was the third World Cup in 1938. 60 years later, they hosted the World Cup for the second time. This World Cup is where they actually won for the very first time, as mentioned in 1998. France have reached the finals of the World Cup a total of 4 times. 2 times they were runners-up. First in 2006, where they were runners-up to Italy and lost on penalties. And again, most recently, the last World Cup in Qatar, where they lost on penalties to Argentina after coming back twice, being down 2-0, coming back 2-2, taking it to extra time, and being down again, and then again scoring. In that match, Kylian Mbappe scored a hat-trick, being only the second player to ever score a hat-trick at a World Cup final. Jeff Hurst was the first player for England to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final when they beat Germany. Kylian Mbappe also is the player to score the most goals in any World Cup final, scoring a total of 4. 3 in the 3-3 against Argentina in the 2022 World Cup final, and he scored 1 goal in the 4-2 win over Croatia in the 2018 World Cup final in Russia. A fellow Frenchman has scored the most World Cup goals in one World Cup, Just Fontaine. He scored 13 in the 1958 World Cup. He scored 13 goals in only 6 games. That's averaging a 2.16 every game. That World Cup in 1958, France managed to make it to the semi-finals. They lost to Brazil 5-2. In the 3rd place playoff, they went on to beat Germany 6-3. At the time, that was France's best performance at a World Cup. That was 20 years after they hosted it for the first time in 38. And 40 years before they went on to host it again and win it, which then was France's best performance at a World Cup. In 1986, France did reach 3rd place again, just before they would eventually go on to win the World Cup. They lost to West Germany 2-0, but they went on to beat Belgium 4-2 after extra time. France have competed in 16 World Cups. Out of the nations that are part of UEFA, so the Eurozone, only Italy and Germany have competed at more World Cups than them. Spain and England have also competed at 16 World Cups, making all 3 of those nations tied 3rd on the list of European nations that have competed at a World Cup. France are part of the original 13 nations to compete at a World Cup, competing in the very first one in 1930 in Uruguay. also making them one of 4 nations from UEFA to compete at the World Cup for the first time. Since hosting the World Cup in 1998, France haven't missed qualifying for a World Cup. It's their longest streak, 7 World Cups in a row. So out of the 22 World Cups, France have competed in 16 and have missed 6 World Cups. Now, even though they've competed in those World Cups, some they didn't play too well in, failing to make it out of the group stage or getting knocked out in the very first round or the round of 16. Total of 7 World Cups is where they didn't get out of the first obstacle. For example, in the very first World Cup, they didn't make it out of the group stage. And then in the next World Cup, which was only knockout rounds, they failed to get out of the first round, round of 16. It was till the first World Cup that they hosted in 1938 where they made it past their first obstacle and made it to the quarterfinals. They went on to lose to Italy, who were the holders at the time, and Italy went on to win in that World Cup in 38. At that time, France was the first nation to host a World Cup that didn't win it, though there was only 2 World Cups before 38. These days, it is rare for a host nation to win the World Cup. The last time a host nation did win a World Cup, funny enough, was France in 98. Since then, no host nation has come close or even reached the final of the World Cup they've hosted. Brazil, I guess, came the closest, where they reached the semi-finals of the 2014 World Cup. So did Germany, where they also reached the semi-finals in 06. Oh, and South Korea. So it's 3 nations that have reached the semi-finals of the World Cup, but no nation has reached the final since the turn of this century. Russia did all right in 2018. They got to the quarterfinals, but both South Africa and Qatar failed to make it out of their group. So yeah, even though France is the first nation to not win the World Cup in their as hosts, they eventually did do it. Sorry, but like I said, it's a very common thing now. Hard to win at home these days, with a lot more nations being stronger. Maybe in 2026, USA, Mexico, and Canada will give it a shot. Sorry, maybe. 4 years after that, another 3 nations will be hosting it. Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. Spain for a second time might have a shot of winning it at home. And then in 2034, I believe Saudi Arabia will be hosting it. You never know. Anyway, back to France. France's worst performance at a World Cup would be the 2002 World Cup in South Korea and Japan. As the holders of the World Cup, this is probably the worst performance as a champion to try and retain the World Cup. They got a point, but failed to score 1 goal at that World Cup. France finished bottom of their group. France would then go on to reach the final of the next World Cup after that, which was in 2006. But then, in 2010, they failed to get out of their group again. Italy, who won the World Cup in 2006, also didn't get out of their group. This became a trend for 20 years amongst European nations, where the nation that did win the World Cup failed to get out of the group at the following World Cup. Brazil was an exception, where they finished in the quarterfinals of the 2006 World Cup, where they were the holders at that World Cup. France started it off. As mentioned, they won the World Cup in 98, but in 2002, they couldn't get out of their group. Italy won the World Cup in 2006, but in 2010 they couldn't get out of their group. Spain won the 2010 World Cup, but failed to get out of their group in 2014. Germany won the World Cup in 2014, and again couldn't get out of their group in 2018. But France broke the trend that they started. They won the World Cup in 2018 and actually reached the final in 2022. A bizarre one. Well, found it quite interesting. I didn't mention this about Just Fontaine, but he's also still France's all-time top scorer at a World Cup. One World Cup, 13 goals. That is crazy. Kylian Mbappe is close to him. He's on 12. So just one goal in the next World Cup. If France managed to qualify, he would tie Just Fontaine's record. And if he passes it, scores more, he will break it. But with that said, one World Cup, 13 goals, I don't think that could ever be matched. And only 6 games. Yeah, no player actually comes close to either of two of them with the amount of goals scored at a World Cup. Let's talk about appearances. So Hugo Lloris has the most appearances for France at the World Cup, appearing in 20 games. As of 2023, he has retired from international football. There's a few players that are close to him, such as Griezmann, Giroud, and Varane. Griezmann has appeared 19 times. Giroud, 18. Varane as well, 18. Giroud and Varane have both retired from international football, but Griezmann, he hasn't. He's still young, so it's most likely if France do compete at the next World Cup, then most likely he will break Hugo Lloris's record for most appearances for France World Cup. Hugo Lloris also has the record as most appearances as a goalkeeper at the World Cup. Speaking of another goalkeeper, Fabien Barthez shares the record for the most clean sheets. He shares that record with England goalkeeper Peter Shilton. 10 clean sheets. Let's discuss some matches quickly as well. The most goals they scored in a game at the World Cup was in 1958, where they beat Paraguay 7-3. That's their biggest margin of victory, though they have won 4-0 in the past when they beat Saudi Arabia in Group C in 98. That same World Cup in 1958 was also their heaviest defeat when they lost to Brazil 5-2 in the semi-finals. Italy are the team that France have played the most at a World Cup. A total of 5 times they've played them. First, they beat them in 1986, 2-0 in the round of 16. And they beat them on penalties in the quarterfinals of the World Cup in 1998. The last time those two have met in the finals was in 2006, where France lost 5-3 on penalties. That was brief. No, it really wasn't. But that was some information on France and their history at the World Cup. The next videos I'll be making will go a little more in depth on which World Cups France did qualify for and their qualifying campaigns, and even the World Cups that they failed to qualify for. I'll probably be splitting up those videos into decades or maybe eras. So I'm most likely going to start off the first video on the 1930 World Cup, 34 and 38, all pre-World War II World Cups. And then I'll go on further there. But the first video for France FIFA World Cup history, pre-World War World Cups. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And bye.